Hello, welcome to yet another stream, or rather a continuation of a stream. I'm going to be reading to you guys today a little bit of that book. Just a little bit of the book. Not a lot of it, just a little bit. A little. That being said, open it up, chat. Right. So we left off reading the Silence Do Good letters. This is the 6th letter, dated June 11, 1722. To the author of the New England Current, Sir, among the many reigning vices of the town which may at any time come under my consideration and reprehension, there is none which I am more inclined to expose than that of pride. It is acknowledged by all to be a vice the most hateful to God and man. Even those who nourish it in themselves hate to see it in others. The proud man aspires for nothing less than an unlimited superiority over his fellow creatures. He has made himself a king in Silique, fancies himself conquering the world, and inhabitants thereof consulting on proper methods to acknowledge his merit. I speak it to my shame. I myself was a queen from the 14th to the 18th year of my age, and governed the world at all time of my being, governed by my master. But this speculative pride may be the subject of another letter. I shall at present confine my thoughts to what we shall call pride of apparel. This sort of pride has been growing upon us ever since we parted with our homespun clothes from 14-penny stuffs, and the pride of apparel has begot and nourished in us a pride of heart, which portends the ruin of church and state. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And I remember my late reverend husband, who would often say upon this text that a fall was the natural consequence as well as punishment of pride. The daily experience is sufficient to evidence the truth of this observation. Persons of small fortune under the dominion of this vice seldom consider their inability to maintain themselves in it, but strive to imitate those superiors in estate or equals in folly, until one misfortune comes upon the neck of another, and every step they take is a step backwards. By striving to appear rich, they become really poor and deprive themselves of the pity and charity that is due to the humble poor man, who is made so more immediately by Providence. This pride of apparel will appear to be too more foolish if we consider that those airy mortals who have no other way of making themselves considerable but by gorgeous appeal draw after them crowds of imitators who hate each other while they endeavor after a similitude of manners. They destroy by example and envy one another's destruction. I cannot dismiss this subject without some observations on a particular fashion now reigning among my own sex. The most immodest and inconvenient of any art of woman was invented, namely that of hoop petticoats. Let me see what the fuck hoop petticoats is. What the fuck? What the fuck? Hoop. Oh, okay. It's the big gown type things that the woman wore in the old times. Um, let's see. By these they are incommoded in their general and particular calling, and therefore they cannot answer the ends of every necessary or ornamental appeal. These monstrous topsy-turvy mortar pieces are neither fit for the church, the hall, nor the kitchen, and if a number of them were well mounted on Noodle's Island, they would look more like engines of war for bombardiering the town than ornaments for the fair sex. Than ornaments of the fair sex. An honest neighbor of mine, happening to be in town some time since on a public day, informed me that he saw 4 gentlewomen and their hoops half mounted in a balcony as they withdrew to the wall, to the great terror of the militia, who he thinks might attribute their irregular volleys to the formidable appearance of these ladies' petticoats. I assure you, sir, I have but little hopes of persuading my sex, by this letter, utterly to relinquish the extravagant foolery and indication of immodesty in this monstrous garb of theirs. But I would at least desire them to lessen the circumstance of their hoops, and leave it with them to consider whether they, who pay no rates or taxes, ought to take up more room in the king's highway than the men, who yearly contribute to the support of the government. I am, sir, your humble servant. This is number 7. It has been the complaint of many ingenious foreigners who have travelled among us that good poetry is not to be expected in New England. I am apt to fancy the reason is, not because our countrymen are altogether void of a poetical genius, nor yet because we have not those advantages of education which other countries have, but purely because we do not afford that praise and encouragement which is merited when anything extraordinary of this kind is produced among us, upon which consideration I determined, when I met with a good piece of New England poetry, to give it a suitable encomium, 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 and thereby endeavor to discover to the world some of its beauties, in order to encourage the author to go on and bless the world with more and more excellent productions. There has lately appeared among us a most excellent piece of poetry, an elegy upon the much lamented death of Mrs. Hidbell Kittle, wife of John Kittle of Salem. It may justly be said it is in its praise, without flattery to the author, that the most extraordinary piece there was had been wrote to New England. The language is so soft and easy, the expression is moving and pathetic, and above all, the verse and numbers so charming and natural, that it is almost beyond comparison. I find no English author, ancient or modern, whose elegies may be compared with this, in respect to the elegance of style, or smoothness, or rhyme. For the affecting part, I will leave your readers to judge. If they read any lines that would sooner make them draw their breath and sigh, if not shed tears, than the following. Blah, blah, blah. Poem. Blah, blah, blah. Honestly, dude, these silence do good letters are kind of fucking gay. I think I'm just gonna fucking skip over them. Fuck all that. What are we up to? What are we up to, chat? Is there anybody there? Is there anybody listening? No? Okay. An edict by the King of Prussia, printed in the Public Advisor, September 22nd, 1773. Although written in the style of a royal proclamation, this edict by Benjamin Franklin is really a satire in which Franklin claimed that England belonged to Prussia, and goes on to list the restrictions imposed by the British by the Prussian monarchy. In this way, Franklin used the fictional relationship to comment on the imposition of British rule on the American colonies. With the Public Advisor. Oh, you son of a bitch. For the Public Advisor, the subject of the following article of foreign intelligence being exceedingly extraordinary, as the reason of it being separate from the usual articles of foreign news. Jan 6, September. We have long wondered here at the supineness of the English nation under the Prussian impositions upon its trade entering our port. We did not till lately know the claims, ancient and modern, that hang over that nation, and therefore could not suspect that it might submit to those impositions from a sense of duty or from principle of equity. The following edict, just made public, may, if serious, throw some light upon the matter. Frederick, by the grace of God, King of Prussia, to all present and to come, health. The peace now enjoyed throughout our dominions have afforded us leisure to apply ourselves to the regulation of commerce and improvement of our finances, and at the same time the easing of our domestic subjects in their taxes. For these causes and other good considerations, us thereto, thereunto moving, we hereby make known that after broad having deliberated these affairs in our council, present our dear brothers and other great officers of the state, members of the same, we as our certain knowledge, full power and authority royal, have made and issued this present edict. Whereas it will be well known to all the world that the first German settlements made in the island of Britain were by colonies of people, subjects of our renowned ducal ancestors, and drawn from their dominions under the conduct of Hengist, Horsa, Heya, Ufa, Serdius, Ida, and others, and that the said colonies have flourished under the protection of our august house in ages past, have never been emancipated therefrom, and yet have hitherto yielded little profit to the same. And whereas we ourselves have in the last war fought for and defended the said colonies against the power of France, and thereby enabled them to make conquests from the said power in America, for which we have not yet received adequate compensation, and whereas it is just and expedient that a revenue should be raised from the said colonies in Britain toward our indemnifications, and that those who are descendants of our ancient subjects and then still owe us due obedience should contribute to the replenishing of our royal coffers, as they must have done had their ancestors remained in the territories now to us appertaining. We do therefore hereby ordain and command that from and after the date of these presents, there shall be levied and paid to our officers in customs on all goods, wares, and merchandises, and on all grain and other produce of the earth exported from the said island of Britain, and on all goods in whatever kind imported into the same, a duty of 4.5% ad valorem, for the use of us and our successors, and that the said duty may more effectually be collected, we do hereby ordain that all ships or vessels bound from Great Britain to any other part of the world, or from any other part of the world to Great Britain, shall in their respective voyages touch at our port of Königsberg, there be unladen, searched, and charged with said duties. Whereas there have been from time to time discovered the said island of Great Britain by our colonists there many mines or beds of iron, stone, and sundry subjects of our ancient dominion, skillful in converting the said stone into metal, have in times past transported themselves there, carrying them with them and communicating the art, and the inhabitants of the said island, presuming that they had a natural right to make the best use of they could of the natural productions of their country for their own benefit, had not only built furnaces for smelting the said stones into iron, but have erected plating forges, slitting mills, and steel furnaces for the more convenient manufacturing of the same, thereby endangering a diminution of the said manufacture in our ancient dominion, and do therefore hereby further ordain that from after the date thereof, no mill or other engine for slithing or rolling of iron, or any plating forge or work with the tilt hammer, or any other furnace for making steel, shall be erected or continued in the said island of Great Britain, and the Lord Lieutenant of every county and the said island is thereby commanded, on information of any such erection within his county, to order and by force to cause the same to be abated and destroyed, and he shall answer the neglect thereof to us at his peril. But we are nevertheless graciously pleased to permit the inhabitants of the said island transport their iron to Prussia, there to be manufactured, and to them returned, they paying our Prussian subjects for the workmanship and all costs of commission, freight, and risk coming and returning, anything herein contained to the contrary notwithstanding. We do not, however, think fit to extend this our indulgence to the article of wool, by meaning to encourage only not the manufacturing of woolen cloth, but also the raising of wool in our ancient dominions, and to prevent both as much as may be in our said island. We do hereby absolutely forbid the transportation of wool from thence ever to the mother country Prussia, and that those islanders may be further and more effectually restrained in making any advance of their own wool in the way of manufacture. We command that none shall be carried out of one county into another, nor shall any worsted bay or woolen yarn, cloth says, bays, kerseys, serges, frizzies, druguts, cloth serges, shalloons, or any other drapery stuffs or woolen manufactures whatsoever, made up or mixed with wool in any of the said counties, be carried into any other county, or be waterborne even across the smallest river or creek, on penalty of forfeiture of the same, together with the boats, carriages, horses, and shall be employed in removing them. Nevertheless, our loving subjects there are hereby permitted, if they think proper, to use all their wool as manure for the improvement of their lands. And whereas the art and mystery of making hats hath arrived at great perfection in Prussia, and the making of hats by our remote subjects ought to be more as possible restrained, and for as much as the islanders before mentioned, being in possession of wool, beaver, and other furs, have presumptively where the fuck did I go? Presumptuously conceived they had the right to make some advantage thereof by manufacturing the same into hats, to the prejudice of our dominion manufacture. We do therefore hereby strictly command and ordain that no hats or felts whatsoever, dried or undried, fish or unfished, shall be laden or put into upon any vessel, cart, carriage, or horse, to be transported or conveyed out of any county in the said island into another county, or to any place whatsoever, by any person or persons whatsoever, on pain of forfeiting the same, with any penalty of £500 sterling for every offence. Nor shall any hat maker in any of the said counties employ more than 2 apprentices, on penalty of £5 sterling per month. We intending hereby that such hat makers, being so restrained both in the production and sale of their commodity, may find no advantage in continuing their business, but lest the said islanders should suffer inconveniency by the want of hats, we are further graciously pleased to permit them to send their beaver furs to Prussia. We also permit hats made thereof to be exported from Prussia to Britain, the people thus favored to pay all costs and charges of manufacturing, interest, commission, to our merchants, insurance, and freight going and returning, as in the case of iron. And lastly, being willing further to favor our said colonies in Britain, we do hereby also ordain and command that all thieves, highway and street robbers, house breakers, forgers, murderers, sodomites, and villains of every denomination who have forfeited their lives to the law of Prussia, but whom we, in our great clemency, do not think fit to hang, shall be emptied out of our goals into said island of Great Britain. Oh, jeez. Okay, villains of every dominion who have forfeited their lives to the law of Prussia, but whom we in our great clemency do not think fit to hang, shall be emptied of our goals to the island of Great Britain for the better peopling of that country. We flatter ourselves that these our royal regulations and commands will be thought just and reasonable by our much favored colonists in England, and the said regulations have been copied to the statutes of 1011 blah 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 blah, and other equitable laws made by the parliaments, and the instructions given by their princes, or from resolutions of both houses entered into the good government and their colonies in Ireland and America, and all persons in said island are hereby cautioned not to oppose in any wise or execution of this our edict, or any part thereof, such opposition being high treason, of which all of who are suspected shall be transported in fetters from Britain to Prussia. There will be tried and executed according to Prussian law. This is our pleasure, given at Potsdam the 25th day of the month of August 1773, in the 33rd year of our reign, by the king of his council. Is anybody there? Is anybody even listening? Or can I go to bed? I would not mind going to sleep. I already did a stream earlier. Would not mind going to bed. Fucking making me mad fucking sad because nobody ever fucking shows up to my shit. I do this every day. Where you at? Better just go to bed, yo. Honestly, about to.
Ports. That's according to Reuters.
Alright, fuck you. I'm out of here. Nobody's even there to fucking be like, no, don't go, no. No, don't go offline. Yo, no. One person says don't go offline, I'll stay. You got 30 seconds. Nobody watching this bitch right now anyway. Watching. Fucking 0 people on Kick, 0 people on YouTube.